Right. And that gets back to what is democracy, actually. If we're going to restore democracy, it's not necessarily going to be because the politicians finally let us have it again. It might be a lot more like India or Ecuador, where we take it into our own hands. I mean, that's democracy. Like, we're so conditioned to appeal to authority to grant us privileges. I mean, that's what school is all about.
Right.
And maybe they'll let us have an election for homecoming queen.
Or go to the bathroom.
Yeah. Or to pick the school mascot. Like, that's democracy as we have been trained,
That's true.
Yeah. But like, that conditioning is pretty toxic. And democracy is to say, no, this is our country. We are not merely suffered to exist here and granted privileges by somebody whose country it actually is. This is our country. Like, when I think that every time I see like Department of Transportation, like, no trespassing signs along the highway, they have, and I understand they don't want people like messing around with their, roadside equipment and stuff, but no trespassing. Whose land is it? And even to take it further, like these vast land holdings in many countries by a very small minority of people are now more and more corporations. Like, whose land is it? By what authority are they the owners of that land? It's legal authority. It's which is very different from popular sovereignty. And especially if you trace back the history of the ownership, usually it's because somebody took it by force and appropriated it from the commons. So I'm not saying that the solution, therefore, is to arbitrarily confiscate all the land owned by rich people and corporations.
But that would be nice.
But really, it's the principle of the land is only yours by the sufferance, the permission of we, the people. Mm-hmm. So what that might lead to is that, you can own the land, you can do certain things, but you can't put no trespassing signs up there. And some countries have this, actually. Like Sweden, every citizen has the right to walk on any piece of land.
Whoa. And
to even camp for a day or two, like, with the exception, like, you can't, set up your tent within whatever 50 meters of a house or something like that. But like, the whole country's yours.
Amazing.
Yeah. And there's some other countries like that too. I believe Ireland.
Wow.
Like, you can walk across the countryside. So like, what property is can embody democracy in a way that isn't derived from the power of the people with guns in whom we invest authority.
Right.
So if we're going to talk about political hope, this is like really understanding democracy, like really deconditioning ourselves from the habit of appealing to somebody to give us something that's already ours.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's it's a feedback loop too of people thinking that they have that authority, and then we keep giving it to them. They think they have. It's like a terrible loop. So let me swing the conversation into this one thing that I love to do with all the guests that we have on Political Hope is also to kind of do a little bit of planting a seed of what is Charles doing and what is Charles up to if it's a glass ceiling. So in the next 3 years, where do you see yourself, and in the context of also building political hope in the world, and what is the best that could happen in the next few years that you imagine? The best. What would you be a part of? What would you be? Would you be facilitating? Would you be?
Yeah, I'm getting a little bit weary of what I'm doing. I've been writing about this kind of stuff for a long time. And, I put stuff out there that's really a call for peace, for truth and peace. And I'm getting all kinds of attacks, and like, it's kind of getting to me, and I'm not doing this to gain approval or popularity. I don't care that much about the size of my audience, but sometimes I get the feeling that I need to do something else, and direct the bulk of my energy to something else. And maybe it's, I have an idea for a screenplay. I have
Nice.
this. I've been doing more and more kind of like behind the scenes stuff in advising. I think I can be really useful there. And then there's something I want to build, that it's kind of a temple, but mostly outdoors. This is the first time I've mentioned this in any kind of public way, but it's kind of a outpost of the future into the present, that where people would go and receive an activation, not necessarily, or probably not at all, from me, but from the place itself. I guess I want to exercise powers beyond merely, persuasion and logic, even though I don't think that's mostly what I do already. I'm not only speaking from the head, but I don't know. Like, I feel, you mentioned glass ceiling. I feel like there is kind of a glass ceiling that I don't have. Here's another thing. Like, I don't have actually a really clear idea of what lies on the other side of my impatience and dissatisfaction and feeling of limitation with what I'm doing right now. And sometimes you have to go through an in-between territory. You don't necessarily step right onto the new thing when you let go of the old thing. There's usually a period of turbulence, of uncertainty, of unknowing, of inactivity sometimes, of dissent. Other cultures have room for this, or had room for this. Maybe at a certain point in your life, you go on a walkabout. So maybe I need to go on a walkabout now, and then what is mine to do becomes more clear.
Yeah, and in where I come from in India, we call it udasi, where you go on like a walking, just go like a thorough walk.
How long do those usually last?
I mean, some of the guys who did it, they would go for like several years. Yeah. Some of them go for like a month or two.
Right.
So depends on what you can finagle, with your commitment, responsibility.
Right. Yeah, like that appeals to me. And then like there's part of me that's like, you can't afford to do that now, things are so intense, you're got to be in action. But that's always true.
But then at the same time, you got people like Satguru who just like traveled all across like Europe and Africa and Middle East and kept going also with what he was, his purposes. So who's making the rules, Charles? Who's making the rules?
Nobody.
wait, I thought it was the government. Oh. So, okay, thank you for playing that game with me, because I think it's important, especially with the kind of with what you reconcile with, and you're also being brilliant. And I think highly intelligent people, they're absorbing so much data and information, and the data information that's out there is very worrisome, and it is very troubling, and there's a lot of shadows to deal with in the world. And so if you're absorbing all of that, it's important to also flip it and see the light too, and the hope within yourself and in your own dreams being cultivated too, because you're holding space for the collective. But Charles, you got to embody the future too.
Totally. Yep.
That being said, okay, let's end it on this note. What advice or encouragement or direction would you give to folks out there that are young spirited, young minded? A lot of millennials listen to Gen Zs, listen to this. People, right? A lot of people listen to this too. Aren't actively politically involved as well. Right, just to let you know, that's my intention with this, is to inspire the right kind of political activism. So what would you do to inspire them to be involved and civically involved?
I'm not sure if I would try to inspire them to be civically involved. Like what I was saying before about what true democracy is, and how the political energy gets shunted into electoral politics that are fairly inconsequential. It's like you get to vote for the school mascot. right? So perhaps the apparent apathy of the younger generations is actually a healthy sign. Maybe you are preparing for real political action more along the lines of what's happening in India or Ecuador. And I guess to prepare for that, again, it comes down to what kind of revolution are we looking for here? So how do you prepare for the revolution of love? You have to cultivate non-judgment. You have to be able to create spaces for truth and reconciliation. You also have to become aware of the set of conditions that influence the decisions that the people in power are making, so that we can change those conditions, change them economically, materially, also change them psychically, change the matrix of values and stories and assumptions that we live in. That's the preparation. Like, that's the kind of political, and it includes, understanding the financial system, understanding geopolitics, understanding ecology, understanding, and it takes some work, because the what is presented to us as knowledge is part of the brainwashing. It's part of the propaganda. It takes some actual work and a search beyond Wikipedia. It takes a journey, actually. Yeah. It takes a walkabout. And the more understanding from many different perspectives, like never writing anybody off, but like to inhabit many different perspectives, then you can become wise and hold judgments much more lightly. Yeah. And to be aware also of like some of the habits that keep us enslaved. For example, the habit of addressing any crisis or problem by finding the one thing that is responsible for it, which is a very strong habit. Like public health. I mean, it's been getting worse and worse ever since I was a kid. Chronic disease, autoimmunity, alcoholism, addiction.